Going to start our first panel as part of our WSA Puebla 2023 event. Okay, good. We're going to start with our first session. Let me introduce our host today, who will take the floor first, tell us what we're going to do. So it's very important that everybody is seated, please. Good. Ready. Are we ready? Can you hear me? Good. Okay. We're going to start by welcoming our host today, who is going to chair our session in the Super Cool Mobility Center where we're at. As well, let us welcome all the attendants and Mr. Peter Brook and Sergio de la Vega. Peter Brook, welcome to Puebla. The stage is yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for being here for our next session. Our next session is taking up the topic of futurizing in regard to the issues of climate through the lens and through the issues which are created through mobility and energy. And as we are here in this very interesting factory hall, which does not produce, something which you can right away see, but which is actually a service point, a service platform, a marketplace, I thought it was really interesting to ask Sergio de la Vega, who is the visionary, not just the CEO, the visionary behind Supercool. What does Supercool actually do? Can you explain this to us?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Puebla. Welcome to Supercool. Supercool is not this physical space. Supercool, it's a community that we're trying to shape, a community where every innovator in the mobility space, any consumer in the mobility space, and anyone who wants to be involved in the mobility, new mobility space, can participate and interact with each other. This effort of building a community requires few physical spaces like this, right? This is the physical space that corresponds to the community, but it is Supercool ambition to have at least 70 of these centers open throughout the world by 2028, so that's 5 years' time. This happened to be the first one. Today we have 5 centers under development. There's one in Mexico City, there is one in North America, there is one in Italy, there is one in Dubai in the United Emirates, and of course this center, right? And The purpose of this center is to create a go-to-market platform for all these new companies that are bringing up new solutions, new products for more sustainable mobility, right? I think most of you as entrepreneurs have experienced how difficult the go-to-market is, right? You spend a lot of time, a lot of money on developing a product, developing a service, developing your app, and then we all hit a wall when we got to market, because I can almost tell that going to market sometimes is more difficult than developing the product or the service or the idea. So we want to be a platform for those. I mean, we happen to be finding so many companies creating new mobility solutions, right? There are at least 100 new companies making vehicles, right? Not sure all of them are going to survive, but there are at least 100. There are more than 1,000 companies developing new mobility solutions, electric bikes, mopeds, tricycles, and helicopters, drones. You know, there are so many new solutions that don't use fuel and then don't use combustion, right? All of them are happening at the same time, and all of them are going to need or are in a need for a go-to-market. Even existing car manufacturers are pivoting from their traditional combustion model to more sustainable. Some of them, a few are going for hydrogen, most of them are going electric, but many of them also need a platform like this to connect. So that's one side of the equation. Every one of us that are creating solutions, and it's not necessarily a vehicle. It could be an infrastructure solution, chargers, power generation, so on and so forth. It could be added value solutions like software products and smart cities, everything that brings and generates a better, smarter, and more clean mobility is welcome to this type of centers. On the other side of the equation, something which I consider is becoming quite positive today. We're not going fast enough, but we seem to be in the right direction. At least 70% of the Fortune 500 companies have already committed to some form of carbon neutrality between 2035 and 2040. And many of them are not finding enough solutions, right? I mean, you go to the internet looking for a solution to reduce your emissions in your company. I mean, you're going to find so many value propositions that you're going to end up confused. So this center has also the purpose of bringing all these solutions together for those companies to be able to procure those products and services they need. So that is basically the basic equation of the super cool centers, of the super cool community.
If you have a go-to-market platform, you offer, besides products, also special services to help people make choices. What are the service aspects of what you do here?
You just putting together sellers and buyers is not going to be enough in this transition, right? We started this business. We come from energy. We've been in the energy industry for more than 30 years. But then we transitioned into mobility. We started selling commercial electric vehicles. And our customers said, you know, I'm not ready to buy an electric vehicle because electric vehicle is a product and we need a solution. And when you buy an internal combustion vehicle, all the support community is already established. There are thousands of gas stations, there are hundreds of thousands of repair shops. You know, you just don't worry about anything other than buying the vehicle, right? When you buy an electric vehicle, there's nothing like that. That infrastructure that supports combustion has been built for over 100 years, right? And now we have to quickly build the same infrastructure in the next 10 years, which is pretty much the goal we have. And it's a long goal, but it's very long for the planet, but very short for us that are trying to bring these solutions to the market. So, I mean, we basically are in this mission to bring all of them together, producing the 360. So our customer said, the product, the vehicle, the truck, the bus is not enough. I want the charging solution, I want the data solution, I want the service solution, and that was the inspiration to create this center. So in this center, we are trying to cater to the entire world, right? So, and this is a very hypothetical case, but let's say there is a company in Poland who came out with a wonderful three-wheeler solution for last mile delivery, right? They developed the product in Poland, and then they onboard into our platform, and then we were going to be able to expose them to the entire world. But not just that, we're going to help them do the logistics of moving the products from production in Poland to, say, Mexico, US, Italy, whatever the centers operate. We're gonna provide with the after-sale services. We're going to provide with the importation services. So we do all the services that help companies operate in foreign countries, right? I mean, our motto on that particular area is called one-click go-to-market, right? You just onboard with the center, and you are already exposed to the vast group of companies that are visiting us for solutions, and to the whole community of that. I mean, probably overextended.
So my last question is, if you and I look in this room, most of the people, half of the people, are looking at the little screen. So while they are in the room, they are actually somewhere else. What's your digital strategy to get people who are in the room to look at the digital version of Supercool and make Supercool actually work everywhere?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I mean, of course, we are all drawn by our digital devices, right? I mean, we are partially living in a metaverse already, right? And that metaverse has a great way, which is our cell phone, right? So Supercool is this physical space and a series of physical spaces like this, because mobility is a physical matter, right? It's not a digital matter. You move from point A to point B, and that's physical. But the community coexists in a digital space. So Supercool participates as a marketplace as well in a Web 2.0 realm. And we're also developing a version of all this center in a metaverse. So we're already working on a Web 3.0 in order to be able to converge physical Web 2 and Web 3.0 in the same space. So all of you that are not paying attention are going to get pop-ups from us saying, you know, welcome to Supercool and a digital space.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sergio de la Vega.
Thank you, Peter.
Good.
Thank you.
You have asked that we have a keynote to the topic by José Pablo Camarena. Who is José Pablo?
José Pablo Camarena is...
Is he here?
He's
physically?
here. He's with us.
He is here?
Yeah.
We're very good.
José Pablo, may I do the introduction? José Pablo leads a company called Bitácora Social. It's a market research company, but it's a market research company that operates more on the qualitative and quantitative side, right? Most of the market research follow a very rigid mathematical and statistical approach. José Pablo follows a different approach, more a social approach. He calls himself a social anthropologist more than anything. He has cooperated, and we have worked together for a long time because Supercool, it's a new concept in a new market, right? The electric and sustainable mobility market is relatively a new market, and a marketplace in it is a new category, right? And when you want to know how people are going to react to a new category, you cannot go by the statistics, right? Remember, Henry Ford said that if he had conducted a market research back at his early years, everybody would have asked for more horses, right? So José Pablo has been working with us in a social research, and he's going to share one of his findings with us. Thank you, José Pablo.
José Pablo Camarena, please come. The two of us stay here on the stage, and then afterwards we will do something which is typical WSA. It will involve every one of you, because we will have a fishbowl, and there are a couple of chairs free, and everybody who has something important to ask, or somebody who has even an important answer, is invited to come up on the stage. But first we have Pablo. It's your time.
Thank you very much, Peter. Muy buenos días, ¿cómo están todos y todas el día de hoy?
Good morning, everyone.
Un poquito más de energía.
Yeah, we need a lot of energy. This is our first day. We're going to open the event with this talk. How are you today? Good. Well, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for the invitation from our authorities, Peter, Sergio, Rudy. Thank you very much for bringing me here. Welcome to Mexico. Welcome to Super Cool, a great space where we're going to share ideas. Ahora,
How social anthropology can give us some insights in terms of human behavior, in terms of a decision-making process, and how can you, innovators, entrepreneurs, people that are social activists, can benefit from social anthropology. ¿Me podrían ayudar con la presentación, por favor? Excellent. The number 13. For some people, the number 13 represents bad luck. For other people, number 13 represents good luck. For me today, it represents happiness and commitment. Why? Because I want to share with you that today we are celebrating Bitácora Social 13th anniversary, 13 years doing social anthropology. Today is the day that thank you very much. Thank you. And I knew that it was the perfect place for celebrating. Right in the afternoon, I will invite tequilas to every one of you. Let's have tequilas or mezcal. It's your choice. But let me tell you what have I learned in these 13 years. I have learned with social anthropology the importance of context. ¿Pueden poner la anterior, por favor? Reading context is important. In this image that you are seeing, there is no food there. There is no beverages. There is no candy. Hey, Pablo, I can see a candy of the size of the head of the child there. Oh, in that context, that is not food, that is not candy, that is not beverage. That is entertainment, reward, comprising the family. Because in that context, the family is making decisions towards indulgence, towards fun, towards behaving as a family and celebrating the moment they are doing their. Interesting thing, if you grab that mother and that mother tells you about nutrition, she's going to give you a master class on proteins, equilibrium, fruits, because that is another context. Reading context is important in social anthropology. Also, learning to read conducts, behaviors, the whys and hows behind decisions, behind how do we make decisions in our daily life. Let me give you an insight. You can know in Latin America in which socio-economical and cultural sector you are just looking to the wall of the living room of the family. If you see art, probably you're in the upper middle sector. If you see minimalism, probably you're in the typical middle sector. But if you see the Beauty and the Beast, you're in lower middle class sector. Why? Because the living room and the walls is the space where you're exposing the good things about our family, the souvenirs, the memories, the diplomas, the likes and hobbies of the family. Why? Because in lower middle class, we do not control the future, but we can control our collective memory, and we will brag about that. Conducts and behaviors. And if you have good eye, you can see there that they have tequila, religion, a shrine, and they're watching contents. It's not about technology, it's about what do you do with technology. And also, you can become, with social anthropology, an excellent reader of cultural codes. And for me, that's fascinating. When you go to a place, you see an image, you can start reading cultural codes. For example, here, if we talk about safety, uncertainty, maybe we're going to see the stock of the inventory that the person has, the personality, maybe we're going to find some chains, some locks, safety. But also, the funny bag, the greased bag, la cangurera, la riñonera, that Don Ruben has there. The safety of having his money there, to administrate it, to provide, to make decisions in the daily life. Hey, Pablo, okay, but that is maybe an older generation. Maybe nowadays we are doing innovation in terms of changing the mom and pop store towards technology. Oh, the pattern repeats. The funny bag is there. Why? because social anthropology can give you a thing that I am grateful of. Seeing reality with different eyes. And with those eyes and with those lenses, you can start identifying the difference between what is important and what is relevant. Yeah, it's important to talk about democracy in our countries. But maybe it's more relevant to go to the concert of Rosalía y Motomami, and let's dance with Rosalía. Yeah, it's important to talk about migration. But maybe if you're in Mexico, it's not as relevant as if you're in Chile. Maybe it is important to talk about sustainability. But is it relevant in our daily basis, in our daily life? So thanks to Sergio and Rudy, to the team of Supercool, we went to understand and study through anthropology what is sustainable mobility in Latin America. And first of all, we learned that in our region, mobility can be problem, time spending, stressful, anthropologically speaking, can be a pain in the ass. That is mobility in our country. But also, mobility can be a sign of status. Tell me which car you drive, I can tell you to which socioeconomic and cultural level you belong. But also, mobility can be a sense of pragmatism. No? Let's go out, we have a motorcycle, we need to go to grocery shopping. Yeah, let's hop on the bike. But you are four people, we're wearing helmets, we're conscious. The pattern repeats. That is mobility in our countries. And what is sustainability? Yes, sustainability can be the idealization of living in a super ecological house with solar panels, zero waste. That is part of our discourse. But also, sustainability can be showering with a bucket of water because there's a scarcity of water in Iztapalapa, in Antofagasta, in Santiago, in Barranquilla. So I've learned that I need to be prepared, so I take showers with a bucket. That's sustainability. And also, sustainability can be recycling plastic bottles in order to hold on parking spaces in our countries. We are reducing plastic. That is the social imaginary behind sustainability. Sustainable mobility, then, in the daily life of people, is not a priority. We have a lot of other priorities in our daily life: security, peacemaking, public access to health, education, work, unemployment. It's not a priority. So that's why we went to talk with the specialists in Latin America. The people, you, the experts about mobility and sustainable mobility in our countries, what do they are saying? First of all, that the concept is promoted and managed by big institutions, government and big corporations. Second of all, it's linked to the future, but disconnected with today. Every time we talk about sustainable mobility, it's talking about 2030, it's talking about 2040. I don't know what is happening tomorrow. If it's to the future, let's delegate it. Let's do another thing, because it's not connected to the present. And at the end, there are no concrete benefits, tangible, material, immediate benefits of being sustainable in our daily life. These were the countries that were participants of our study, archetypical parts of Latin America. We found out that, first of all, the caring for the environment is very honest, and it's linked to two basic things: access to technology and the gathering and sharing of information, networking through information, free access to information. Let's share information about sustainable mobility in our countries. It's hard to be constantly sustainable. It's stressful, it's tiring. It's almost impossible being 100% sustainable. Not only because in our daily life, we do not have the infrastructure, the urban designs, the tools to be 100% sustainable, but also there's a lot of reliance on third parties. Other countries, imports, government, bureaucracy. It's difficult because you are depending on third parties in order to be sustainable in terms of mobility. Mobility is linked to prestige and luxury, meaning it's expensive. There's a perception and a social imaginary that being sustainable in terms of mobility, it's very expensive. It's premium. It's a luxury that you may have. It's a way of life. But when you have it, you become a member of this prestigious club called electric mobility. And people want that. People are desiring to be part of that club. There's a gap between visions, the global and the local. It's excellent that we are talking about at the United Nations about sustainable mobility, but what is happening in Puebla? What is happening in Cali? What is happening in La Paz, Bolivia? Sometimes the big ideas do not translate correctly in a fertile field as Latin America. The context is different. And there's a lot of tension with the government. I don't see Hermilo here, I don't see Olivia, I can talk freely. There's a lot of tension with the government. Budgets, there's no correct budget for sustainable mobility. It's placed on another bucket. Infrastructure, the private sector has to be the responsible of infrastructure. And what about the government putting infrastructure, electric charge stations? What about legislations, taxations? Everything, there's no concrete benefit about being part of an electric sustainable mobility club in our countries. The government is an obstacle rather than be a simplifier, a facilitator. And there's a lot of problems to be solved. This is a very scarce list of the problems we identify in the study. But at the end, although all these problems, there's this sense of wanting to change the way we do things in Latin America. We are open, and the good news is that Latin America is a big country. Something that is suitable in Mexico may be suitable in Central America. Something that is suitable in Colombia can be successful and very attractive in Chile. We are a big country, and no matter what the problems to be solved, I will say you again, 13. 13 is my recommendation of today. Why? Because for every one initiative, you need 3 variables. And those variables are context. Let's talk about predictive environments in Latin America. Let's see what is happening in 2024. Let's start reading context about necessities in rural areas. Let's talk about the transportation design in urban and very specific big cities. Second of all, actions with social benefits. One of the biggest mistakes is thinking that the benefit of being a sustainable mobile, it's in sustainable mobility category. No, maybe it's access to health, access to entertainment, access to another type of benefits. It doesn't have to be in the same bucket of the category. Actions with other type of benefits outside the category. And at the end, cultural codes. It's not electric sustainability. It's functional sustainability. Give me tools to solve my everyday life. And if I acquire your tool, I adopt it, next step, I can talk about mobility, I can talk about electricity, I can talk about infrastructure, I can talk about other things. But cultural coding is important in order to identify the concrete benefit I want. And that benefit has to be very functional. And at the end, for one initiative and 3 variables, you're going to be relevant in every people's life. And if you do a very excellent work, you're not only going to be relevant, you're going to be meaningful. Thank you very much.
Now it works. Thank you very much. This was highly interesting and very indicative of the thinking of WSA, because it is very much what WSA is all about, is looking at the local conditions and innovating according to impact. And I think that is very much to the point. Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. We will have now a discussion on the panel, and I would love to have 2 more people on the stage. One person is known already. It's Emilio Barrera Novello, who is standing over there and who did not pay attention to the lecture, which I found very interesting. So he must know everything already, which you said, Pablo. which is very, please come and join us here. Do you get a microphone? Maybe we can give you a microphone. No, no microphone, then just go, let's go here. Yeah. Yeah. And then we have also Carlos Mir, who is the project coordinator in Latin America of electric mobility. He's not here. And then Francisco Molla, who is the director Mexico on endurance motive. Francisco, thank you for joining. Francisco, since nobody knows you yet, why don't you introduce yourself and say what you do? You get the microphone.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Brook. My name is Francisco Moya. I represent a company that manufactures lithium batteries. So we're getting ready, actually we're getting ready to make an investment here in Puebla and manufacture our batteries in our beloved city. So that's what we do. Thank you.
When you look at what Pablo said regarding how people are looking at sustainable mobility, that this is something which is luxurious, it's far away, it's not relevant for the particular kind of context. What is your answer in terms of your own strategy regarding those issues?
Well, yeah, I think it's a very wide question, I think. Like Pablo mentioned, in every country, there's completely different approaches, different opinions, different needs, different environment. So I think we need to talk about that specifically. So it's very difficult to, I've been lucky enough to be able to live in different countries, and while I was listening to Pablo, I was understanding that perfectly, because sometimes even between different cities, your mindset changes a little bit. So imagine going abroad and going to another country, even moving within Latin America, the needs, environment, opinions, perspectives, and daily needs, actually, what Pablo was saying, are completely different. But at the bottom, there is a common ground for all of us, and I think Pablo's project is amazing and great.
When we talk about the sustainability goals and how people are not really seeing them as relevant as they should be for their lives, that raises the issues which Pablo was addressing. Now, let me ask Sergio, in terms of the Supercool Center, how does what the research from Pablo shows you enter into your strategy of making the go-to-market operation more successful, because you're getting more consumers, customers, and people who are interested in those solutions? What is it concretely you're doing?
Well, Pablo's insights have been very useful to us, but now they're becoming obsolete, right? Why? Because I think Pablo mentioned the word context many times.
Yes.
And the context, the worldwide context for sustainable mobility is changing by the day, right? It is 2019. Tesla was struggling to stay in business. In 2020, it was the highest market cap company in the manufacturing world, and the three next companies following Tesla in market cap couldn't make the same valuation. So Tesla was more valuable than General Motors, Toyota, and the Volkswagen Group together for a time. So, and from that point onwards, every single OEM manufacturer has been committing itself first to launch electric vehicles, but today, I don't think there's anyone who hasn't committed to replace all of its production from internal combustion to electric within the next 15, 20 years, right? Not sure it's gonna happen that fast, because it is a massive transition, right? Going from a 100% oil-based and combustion-based mobility world into 100% electric is not just about replacing all the vehicles in the world. It's about changing all the infrastructure that supports charging systems, right? And that is quite challenging, right? But I am very positive about it. And I want to tell you why I feel so positive that we're going to be able to make the change faster than I expected. In 1908, Henry Ford came out with a plan to democratize automobiles by creating a cheap vehicle that would be manufactured in series, like serial production, the beginning of the serial production, right? So he was going to be, Henry Ford took the industry from producing just a few hundred cars a year to thousands of cars a month, right? A huge, huge change on the way that if someone had challenged Henry Ford as to where all that gasoline was going to come from, right? There wasn't enough oil production. There were not refineries, pipelines. Everything that was built over the next 30, 40, 50, or 100 years didn't exist. Nobody could figure out in 1908 how this industry was going to evolve, how deep they're going to be digging into the ocean for oil, and how sophisticated refineries were going to be built. So I think the same is going to happen when it comes to electric mobility and eventually with hydrogen, right? I mean, we're going to see a very, very fast transformation of the electrical grids, of the generation systems, and the charging systems themselves, right? So we in Supercool, we just want to be a catalyzer for that change as a marketplace.
If you want to look at the issue of addressed by Pablo, there's a difference between what you call the tension between, or a gap between the vision and the local conditions. And you identified also that governments have this kind of particular problem. Emilio, how are you addressing this in terms of making changes in the conditions for this rapid take-up which Sergio is talking about?
Yes, thank you very much. That's actually a huge problem. And actually, I see two big problems.
You have to put the...
I see two big problems in Mexico regarding the energy transition and the electromobility transition. First, the whole energy sector is deeply centralized and is deeply managed by the energy companies that are all state-owned. So at the subnational level, it's really difficult to put in motion projects regarding a highly developed energy transition. And second, there's no electromobility policy in the whole country. So at subnational level, where we are facing all the problems, where we are working together with companies and with the industry, there's a lack of regulatory policies where we are allowed to promote this business. We have been working for the last year with Sergio and different companies to put and install charging infrastructure all around the state, because there's no charging infrastructure, so we cannot promote an electromobility transition if we don't have a place where the vehicles are going to be able to charge if they're not in the metropolitan area. So what we're facing is that the regulatory policies and all the legal models that we're allowed to do as a governmental agency, they don't allow us and they don't promote the innovation and they don't promote this infrastructure, because we are facing barrier plus barrier. So I can imagine that this is happening in a lot of countries, in a lot of in developing countries. And the way that we are doing is we're looking for private spaces and municipality spaces where we are allowed to do the investment, and we are allowed to do the investment working with different companies. But this is getting really hard, because even though in Puebla we're putting all this in motion and we're doing all this infrastructure, it's not enough. If a vehicle wants to go from Veracruz, the main port, to Mexico City, where is the big consumers of different goods and services, and they won't be able to do it. Even though we have all the infrastructure in Puebla, we're missing Oaxaca, we're missing Veracruz, we're missing Mexico City. So the thing is, if we don't have a national policy where we promote this happening at some national levels, we're going to be facing all the different problems.
Futurizing technology means not just to point out what the problems are on other people's desks, but what are your own local solutions. Tell us, what is your local solution for helping the mobility transition towards sustainable?
Thank you very much. You just give me a pass for goal.
Very good.
In June of last year, we published the plan for the deployment of electric vehicle chargers. It's the first subnational policy in all of Mexico where we raise the hand and we say, in Puebla, we're going to have one charger every 121 kilometers. And the way we created this policy is we put a lot of different indicators into analysis. The main spaces where we're moving, where all the social demographic growth indicators, the places where the civil protection are. So we defined 6 different routes that need to be electrified as soon as today. In these 6 different routes, there are some ones that are more prior and are more urgent for particular vehicles, and there are other routes that are more urgent for transportation. So we start investing in these chargers hand by Tesla. So we had 20 new chargers, and we electrified 2 different routes all over the north of the city and around the metropolitan area. So right now, if you have an electric vehicle, you're already set up to go to the north of the city and almost near to another state. And we send this plan to different other energy agencies and other ministers of other states because we need them to analyze our policy to make it even better, and we need to share these good practices because we need an infrastructure grid for electric chargers all around the country, not only in Puebla.
Pablo was talking about how to make decisions and how to change your behavior. Okay, what is it, what needs to be done to change the behavior, for instance, from building contractors to put in charging stations in every new housing development in Puebla? What is it, what one needs to do? Francisco, what are strategies on your plate which you would see which change behavior of people?
Yeah, obviously changing behavior is one of the hardest things to do on a personal level. I mean, if we need a big change at a global level, at a country level, at a personal level, we need to start from ourselves, and that's the hardest part. So sometimes we tend to look around and looking for big actions, but at this point in time where we're standing today, we really need to start from ourselves and start changing our behavior, changing our mindset, and applying these little actions that at the end of the day can be big actions in our daily, usual days, daily routines. So that's the most difficult part, and it takes an effort. I'm talking for myself. I mean, I'm in this arena, in this industry, electromobility, and in the day-to-day, it is hard to push yourself to change your mindset. But this is the time. We have to do it. We must do it. And definitely takes time. But I think that we're talking to Sergio before. We are in a historical moment, and this is historic, and this is a critical time, and this is the time to do it. So it is hard. It is difficult. But we must do it. So takes time.
The American answer to changing behavior is comfort and price. Raise the comfort, lower the price. What is the situation in terms of super cool? Are you increasing the comfort for whom? And how do you decrease the price for whom?
I mean,
this was the luncheon sigh.
Exactly. This is, so Peter, I'm not so sure I got the answer, but is how you get comfort versus.
I tell you, Tesla. Tesla is a laptop with 4 wheels, increasing the comfort in terms of interaction and lowering the price in terms of making it available to everybody to a flat price of, I don't know, it was in the beginning, $55,000 US. then going down to 34,000, Model 3, and then going down to 22,000 with the new Volkswagen model, which is coming out, the i2. Okay?
So I want to answer with a broader view on this. Make no mistake, we are in the middle of a very powerful energy transition. The way energy is going to work in the next 10 years is radically different than the way it used to work over the last 100 years. And I'm going to tell you why, based on the question he made. He threw to me. Our current mobility system relies on combustion, right? Combustion, to begin with, is very inefficient. Only 30% of the energy is converted into movement. The rest goes into heat, emissions, and noise, right? 70% of that energy is lost, right? And is processed through a very sophisticated system, right? A carburetor, thousands of moving parts. I mean, it could be an engineering marvel, but it's very sophisticated. Even the most modern, simple cars, and when it comes to combustion, are very, very complex machines with a lot of pieces, right? An electric vehicle is capable of transforming almost 92% of the energy into movement, and an electric vehicle has 1,000, 1,500 parts, as opposed to 20,000 parts or components in internal combustion. So easier to make, works better, but there is a fundamental issue here. Combustion relies on oil and gas. Oil and gas is a non-renewable resource. Every single resource that comes from the earth, whether it's a metal, mineral, or an agricultural product, has an inflationary component, right? The oil and gas that is going to be produced tomorrow is going to be more expensive to produce than the oil and gas that was produced 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we have to dig 500 meters into a desert to find all the oil we need. Today, we need to go thousands of meters in the middle of the North Sea, build platforms. It's so expensive. Same happens with agricultural products. I mean, all the low-hanging fruit has already been harvested. Now we have to harvest the high-hanging fruit, then you need stairs, you need more equipment to do so. So when it comes to natural resources, prices will consistently go up. Will go up in a trajectory, the ups and downs, because it never shoots in a straight line, because we have geopolitical events and you have temporary financial cycles. But if you look at the prices of any commodity, any product that comes from the earth, it keeps going up forever. It's inflationary. Technology is exactly the contrary. Technology is deflationary, right? Today, everybody uses this, right? This is a much better piece of computing than the first framework computers that existed in the planet, you know, and it costs a portion of it, right? I don't think anybody will argue with me that technology makes things better, more comfortable, and cheaper, right? So this is not a super cool thing. This is the nature of technology versus natural resources. This mobility transition is about moving out of combustion into using electricity for that. So we are only connecting the dots. I mean, our role as Super Cool is connecting all these dots to make this accessible to everyone and to accelerate this transition. There is not going to be a way that you will see internal combustion vehicles in the future, because if you take away the cost of a battery, making an electric vehicle is much more cheaper than making an internal combustion vehicle, right? The battery flips the equation completely, right? But we're seeing amazing progress in batteries, right? Okay. And if we happen to gather again in Puebla in 10 years, you are all invited, we want to be laughing at what we saw in batteries in 2023.
You're wonderful, because you explained Moore's law in terms of how you increase the power of output by double every year and decrease the costs at the same time. That is the digital transformation as it operates.
There is a Moore's law going on batteries and electrolyzers, right?
Okay.
It's not the same extent as 9% per year, but 9% per year, year in, year out.
Okay. Each of us traveled to the Supercool Center this morning, including myself. And I saw that there is something very wrong with the picture of the city. As wrong as it is with this kind of pull-up banners. What's wrong with this? It is, at least in my view, I don't see a single photovoltaic panel there. How are you futurizing energy without the photovoltaic panels on every rooftop in Puebla? Milo.
Nice. I think that the people is gonna think that we put each other in communication prior to this, but it didn't happen. So that's a nice question. When we arrived,
You have to speak into the microphone because
sorry. When we arrived to Puebla, there were only 40 megawatts of photovoltaic distributed resources. Just 40 megawatts is nothing in comparison with the potential we have, with the needs we have, and the energy poverty we're facing in Puebla. Because the energy transition and the solar energy can make all the process more efficient, but also they can help us to electrify the communities. So what are we doing? We have first of all, at the end of the administration, we're gonna be able to add up to 30% of the whole distributed resources in less than 3 years. The Energy Agency is not even 3 years old, and we're gonna be able to add up all that capacity. How are we doing that? We have an incentive program for businesses from micro, small, and big businesses. They have up to 20% of all of their investment in photovoltaic resources. Then we have a big electrification program for houses and schools. Last year, we electrified more than 1,000 families that they lack of energy, and we did that all with photovoltaic. Then the electrification of the schools that we're making right now is also with photovoltaic. And then we have a nice educational model in the state of Puebla where we have these big schools, 32 big schools that they give knowledge to more than 70,000 students. And all of those schools are going to have photovoltaic resources by the end of this year. That's more than 1.5 megawatts of capacity. And then we're making an analysis of more than 100 buildings, public buildings, in order to understand which one of those are able to go to solar and make an energy transition led by the example of the government. So if we show to the people that our schools can be electrified with solar, the house that they don't have energy can be electrified by solar. We have an energy transition incentive program, and we are doing the same with our own buildings and on our own schools. That's led by the example. And we want all of the people and all of the different buildings and businesses to make the same thing. So that's going to be able to show in results, because those are different programs that are not happening in other states. So we see each other and we see Puebla as a laboratory of public policies. Our idea is that new policies emerge in other cities and other states where they say, well, the plan for the deployment of electric vehicle chargers is working in Puebla, let's do it in Aguascalientes, let's do it in Nuevo León. The program of electrification of a school, we can do it even better, and they're going to be able to show us how to do it better, and we're going to reply that. So we need to understand that the subnational entities need to be a laboratory for energy transition programs and electromobility.
Thank you, Emilio. There are 2 chairs here, free for anybody of you who wants to contribute, ask a question, or make a statement. So if you're coming up, please sit down and I'll hand you my microphone. In the meantime, Pablo, I have a question for you. What would it take in terms of motivation for each and every citizen of Puebla to become an energy producer, him or herself, by putting a photovoltaic panel on their rooftops?
Okay, excellent question, Peter. Thank you very much. Let me go through a route of an answer. First of all, I will say that in terms of symbolic recognition, telling the people that they are already doing something good in terms of sustainability, it's important. Why? Because in countries like ours or in Latin America, when we talk about sustainability, technology, financial inclusion, most of the times the first step is, no, you're doing it wrong. We have to do it this way. And it's, no, with the tools you have already you're already doing something good and incredible. Let's do something better.
What's the cultural acceptable way in which one tells in Puebla to a person, you're doing something good for society? Does it mean that you get a kiss from the governor or that you get 1,000 pesos more in terms of your pension plan? What is it?
Peter, they are taping us, right? Well, yeah. Oh, if I have to be very ethical with the anthropological answer, the 1,000 pesos, they come in handy. But there are different ways in which you cannot do that. And I think that in the long term are better ways. That, for example, incentives behind taxation, incentives behind discounts in cultural events, incentives behind that if you, for example, you put a solar panel in your house, maybe you have cheaper internet delivered by the government, or maybe you have a special card for public transportation. I think that in the long term, giving those kind of benefits that you can brag about them and that they are not linked with a social, political party or program, it can be interesting in the long term. Obviously, in the short term, if you put money over the table, they will grab it, but that's not the correct way to go in terms of cultural behavior in countries like ours. So I will say recognition, immediate benefits, and at the end, this ability to have an edge within your community to say that I was the first one to have the solar panel, I was the first one to have an electric bike, and be the ambassador of that small community in different regions in Puebla in order to start to make this contagion or contagious behavior throughout the rest of the public.
Milo, is it public knowledge for somebody in Puebla how much money he or she would earn by having photovoltaic panels and feeding the electricity back into the grid? Is this a public knowledge?
Yes, it is, but it's a little bit difficult because the way the energy tariff is composed in Mexico is composed of 6 different elements. So when you try to explain it to a common citizen, sometimes it gets difficult. So that's one important thing, and thank you for mentioning it. We need to have a better energy education, to say that. And it's a complicated knowledge, and not all the people understand it, but it is public information. So what we are doing is all over the state, conference and workshops, especially for businesses, to understand how much they can save in terms of money. They can save if they put solar panels, but also if they put solar heating. We spend a lot of money in gas, and I don't know if you have this information, but the natural gas is not in all of the state of Puebla. It's not even in all the state in all over Mexico. We use liquefied petroleum gas that is highly contaminated. It is more expensive, and is also less safe. So we're spending a lot of money in heating in businesses that they can also change and make a transition to solar. So it is a difficult conversation, but we're promoting this knowledge.
Sergio, when you look at this issue of costs, benefits, and also availability, one of the key issues in terms of futurizing mobility in terms of energy is also, how do I charge? How do I charge fast? How do I charge as conveniently electricity as I do with gas? What is your solution in terms of super cool?
Thank you, Peter. We have built a solution for that. When I travel, and sometimes I travel a lot, I tend to lease or rent an electric vehicle to test the charging infrastructure in every single city that I travel to. And I have to recognize, owning an electric vehicle today, it's a pain. I can tell you hundreds of histories of frustration that I'm going through to charge a vehicle. The model today is a model where you either charge at home or you charge at a shopping mall or any place where you stay for 20 minutes to 2-3 hours to charge your vehicle, right? If that's going to be the name of the game, the world is not going to electrify itself. No way. People will not spend hours making sure they have the amount of energy they need. That's why we built a solution where you can charge in minutes, right? The charging station outside is capable of doing that, right? It's a station that can charge a vehicle in 5 minutes. Now, not every vehicle, because charging is not just a function of the quality and technology in the charger, it's also a function of the technology in the battery, right? And we use this example very often. Think of the battery as a water bottle, right? You know, you have thin plastic water bottles, you have a little bit more thicker plastic bottles, then you have glass bottles, and you have really strong glass bottles, right? If your battery is a plastic water bottle, and you put so much pressure when you are putting water into it, the bottle blows away. It's it becomes like a balloon. It blows. If you have a battery that is strong enough, like a thick glass one, you can put a lot of power, and you will not blow the bottle away for as long as you have the right technology to plug the bottle to the charger. And that's what we do, and I think that's what the world is going to go about. I think, again, 5 to 10 years, futurized on mobility, every car will be a fast charging car, and the experience for getting technology into your vehicle is going to be very similar to the one that has ruled the world for the last 100 years, which is come to a gas station, plug in, and leave. Charging cars at home is not possible, right? I mean, if you live in an apartment building, and the apartment building has a garage for 50, 100 cars, you cannot have 50 chargers. You know, the grid will not support it. It's just too inefficient. And again, the charging at home takes 5 to 10 hours, right? And who is going to be charging in 5 hours when you can charge in 5 minutes, right? So I think that's going to change. That's about to change. Actually, we, in our R&D group, has already experimented with batteries that are capable of charging in less than 5 minutes, right? I mean, the 12C technology battery, which is a semi-solid state, can do almost something called 12C, which is 12 times its capacity. You can charge a battery like that, a 60 kilowatt battery like that, in 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Sergio, for this very, I think, important point. Because what Pablo said before was, he had this thesis that sustainable mobility is not a priority if you charge that long. Now I have a question for Emilio. What do you think is the one most important factor in Puebla to make sustainable mobility a priority for everyone? One. No, not a whole government program, not a large vision, not a reference to the federal government, one concrete thing in Puebla.
We need to stop giving for free the electricity for electric vehicles. That's a big mistake, and it has made a lack of businesses developing in the whole country. That was a decision that Tesla took a couple of years ago, and they are giving energy for free for every electromobility vehicle, and that's not helping, because you're getting people that they are already settled up and they don't have to do anything, and you're going to give them that energy. So we're lacking for new investors, as Sergio and so many other companies, that they want to invest in public charging infrastructure, but there are not enough economical incentive because there are no users. The users are going to prefer to go for a public mall, and they're going to have the electricity for free.
Thank you. Pablo, what is the one most important factor you think to make sustainable mobility a priority here in Puebla?
Involve the people. Involve the people in terms of hearing them, watching their benefits, and being sustainable with their sustainability. For me, including the people is the most important thing.
Sounds that you want to have an additional project paid for by the Energy Agency.
Yeah. With
Okay.
Armilo, we are going to talk about.
I think there are deals being made here on the stage, okay? Francesco, what is it from your side, the one single most important thing to make sustainable mobility a priority here in Puebla?
Well, very hard question, just in only one bullet point, but I would say is coming back to the mindset term. I think is mindset combined with political will. I think that should work quite well.
Okay,
Just
thank you very
summary.
much. We are coming to the end of this session. Let's give a thanks and a big hand to Sergio de la Vega, to Emilio Barrera Novello, to Carlos Mir, and to Francisco Mola, and to José Pablo Camenca. Thank you very much. We are having lunch now, and we are doing something which Nora is going to tell us. Nora, come here. What is happening next?
A woman on stage.
Are there more?
Yes. So we will have lunch now, and then we start at 2:30 with the next session, which is about digital technologies and democracy, and it will be moderated by Connor. So make sure that you have your lunch now, and most important task, take your bags, because afterwards we want you all in the front. Don't hide in the back. We will cut those tables off and want you here at the front tables.
And now the moderation in Spanish, please.
Despedimos a nuestro panel.
Okay, let's give a round of applause to our current panel. Thank you very much, Sergio, José Pablo, Peter, Hermilo, Peter. Let's continue with our event. As they have just announced, we're having a lunch break. It's very important that we stop now, that we break. But I have a very important question. Everything good so far?
Everything cool or everything super cool?
Is everything cool or super cool? Todo muy bien. Bien, continuamos. Ahora comenzamos el receso. This is very important in our program to refrescarse, reflexionar y tomar nuestro alimento. We're going to have this break until 2:30. Then, gracias.
Buen provecho.